You're listening to the Run for Your Lives podcast.
Hey everyone, welcome to the show. I'm Daphne.
And I'm Pake.
And this is the Run for Your Lives podcast.
This episode is the dystopian horror film The Purge, written and directed by James DeMonaco and released June 7th, 2013. Which...
yes.
Holy crap, 2013. Really?
10 years ago.
This movie is not 10 years old already.
Mm-hmm.
It does not feel like that. That's crazy.
I know.
Which, I have not seen this movie since I watched it in theaters in 2013 when it first came out, because it was all the buzz around it. So I went with some friends and went and saw it then, and I haven't seen it since. So I totally forgot that, like, Ethan Hawke and Lena Headey were in it. Like, that was like, I was like, oh, wow. That's quite the leading cast that I totally forgot ever did this movie.
This movie was definitely kind of a sleeper, because the budget was really small. Like, it was $3 million. And it was kind of following this Blumhouse, movie, like, recipe, I guess, for spending a small amount of money and hoping for a big payback. And it did so much better than I think was expected, because at one point they weren't even sure if it would ever face the light of day. And it did way beyond what they expected. It ended up bringing in $91.3 million, which is incredibly respectable. When you look at the budget, I mean, if you think about, like, set-wise, they really didn't have a lot that they had to pay for, because they were shooting in, like, this community. They didn't really have to pay for tons of sets. It was really just this, huge house. So, I mean, I'm not sure what Ethan Hawke, I've got some notes on that, and we'll talk about it later.
All right.
So, I could continue down the production note route, but before I do that, I should tell you that I've only watched this once since before my rewatch for today. Okay, so I saw it in the theater, and I watched it one other time. So was only really the third time of me seeing it, because I want to say, it's my least favorite. There's one other one that it's kind of tied with, but it's not my favorite movie in the franchise.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't go back to it. I actually like Election Year and Anarchy so much more that those are the ones I go to if I'm going to watch a Purge movie.
Interesting. Which I have not seen either of them. This is the only movie in the whole series, the first one, and the only one I've ever seen until we covered the first Purge last season on this podcast. But then other than that, so I haven't seen anything past this. So I will, because we're going to go through them over time here, but
we definitely are. And we decided to cover the Purge films in a little bit of a different way, where we are covering them in the timeline order versus the release order.
Yeah.
So when we did the first Purge, that actually took place, the timing of that episode was 2017. This one actually was taking place in 2022.
This happened last year?
Mm-hmm.
I must not have been paying that much attention. I missed it.
Anarchy took place in 2023. Then there was the Purge TV series, which I really liked, from 2027 to 2031. Purge Election Year took place in 2040. And the Forever Purge took place in 2048. They are planning to do more. I don't know when, but there are some things in the works already. DeMonaco wants to make more, so we'll see where it wants to go.
Nice.
So this, as I mentioned, is the first film in the franchise. It's the second in the timeline. It was filmed in Los Angeles, California. This is the film that really started the whole Purge franchise. It was inspired by this road rage incident DeMonaco and his wife experienced. We've talked about this more when we covered the first Purge, so I'm not going to comment more on it. Already told you the budget and the box office gross, so next is the length of the film, which is 85 minutes. Pake, bring us a synopsis.
All right. A wealthy family is tormented for harboring the target of a murderous syndicate during the Purge, a 12-hour period in which any and all crime is legal.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine it. I don't want to ever imagine anything like this ever happening. Like, it just is so beyond terrifying, but it also showcases what happens when a government gets into power and shines something up, something totally horrible up, like something that it looks like a diamond, and sells it to everyone, when it really is a hateful, despicable thing that's going on.
Right. Yeah. There's definitely social commentary and stuff in here, which I'll talk about. Honestly, even though we have our notes we'll get into, we'll break down characters and stuff. Like, Ethan Hawke's character of James Sandin is like the main character, quote unquote. Don't have as much about him. Like, I've got a little bit more on the kids, but like, honestly, most of my notes are just more about the Purge in general, or this murderous syndicate, as that synopsis said, which I have a couple different names for. One of them will not be on this podcast. It'll be in the Just Daphne cut. But
I can't wait.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny that you should mention that, because my notes, I've got notes about just how things came to be and timeline, and also like what it means, like some of the rules mean, and even just the opening of this movie with all of those clips from different things.
Mm-hmm.
And there's one in particular that is showing like Sioux Falls, North Dakota, and it actually was stuff they took from things that happened in the LA riots.
Mm-hmm.
So
I wondered about that. I didn't look into it too much because I figured you would if there was.
Yeah.
But yeah, as far as like a lot of that opening footage, I was like, I wonder if this is actual just like security camera footage and like things of crimes and news footage of stuff of crimes from our history.
Yeah.
Kind of painted Purge, coverage onto.
Yeah. Well, I mean, one of the feeds was for Buxton, Maine, and Buxton, Maine is very rural. And I was just looking at it thinking, no, I don't think this would be Buxton. Like, no, it doesn't really look like it. No, not really. But it was interesting to see. I remember when I saw it in the theater and saw that they picked a town in Maine, it just, I was just kind of like, it just, kind of blew my mind. I'm like, really, Buxton? You picked an actual town that exists? Okay. I just didn't buy it, but that's because I've been to Buxton.
You didn't see any murderous riots going
on? No. That's actually where the ferret rescue is when I would go and volunteer and stuff. So I'm like, no. Never, I don't know.
You must have just been going in the off season, not during murder peak of the year.
Okay. I'm wondering if you'll come up with a clever term for it, because remember, what did you call it? Murder Trucks USA that you came up with for Pet Cemetery? I wondered if you would come up with something clever for this too.
No, not really. It's just Los Angeles. That's just a Wednesday in Los Angeles, right?
Okay, yeah, probably. It's true. So, before we get into the characters, I've just got a couple of notes about the Purge itself that I thought it would be good to talk about. And then we can start talking about, what's actually happening, if that's okay.
All right.
All right. So, in the opening, we learned that the new founding fathers of America did come to power, which we learned about them in the first Purge, Well, they came to power in 2014 and they instituted this purge concept. It's credited with like 1% unemployment and crimes at an all-time low, and there's a lack of violence. And then we also learn too that there are rules throughout this, and this is when you really start to get, some information about how fucked up this is. Police, fire, emergency medical services are suspended for the duration of the purge. So if you have a heart attack at your home that has nothing related to the purge, you can't even go to the hospital. I mean, that's kind of crazy. The president, first family, and government officials of rank 10 are granted immunity from the purge, meaning they can't be harmed. Yeah. Just let that sink in.
These pipes are getting cold. Let it in.
Yeah, let it in. So, further, when we discuss election year, which will be the movie after next, we'll learn a little bit about that, a little more about that particular rule. Only Class 1 through 4 weaponry is permitted, and Class 5 weaponry, like explosives, is prohibited. And violations of any purge rules will result in public execution. So, that those are the rules. They're not guidelines. It's the law. Go and kill and be merry, but don't do it before or after.
But all crime is legal, so technically shouldn't you be allowed to break those laws too? During the purge?
Exactly. Like, why are explosives not allowed when it's supposed to be everything? Yeah. The only other thing I really wanted to talk about was they're opening with all of this footage of all of, like, previous purges, and this beautiful song, Clair de Lune, by Debussy is playing, and it's like, I've seen this song used so many times by skaters, and it's so beautiful, and it's such a lovely, tranquil piece. And it just seems so out of place with all of this horrific footage.
Right.
So that was a bit of a contrast for me. So, yeah. That's pretty much all I had that I wanted to kind of get out there before we started talking. So, if you don't have anything else, we can jump in to the main character. Unless you think there's a different main character then.
No, I mean, I would say, well, even though he's the only one of the main characters that doesn't survive till the end of the movie, I still feel that, yeah, Ethan Hawke's James Sandon is kind of the lead in a way. Although, honestly, like I said, I don't have a ton about him. Other than, some kind of major bullet points, but it's like, I could kind of recap his story in 20 seconds. And I'd be good on it. But yeah, but just kind of what I've got. I mean, what we get the introduction with James, he is the guy who sells the security lockdown systems, which really are only for this one night a year. Because you think, well, I mean, it's good for like the rest of the year with break-ins and blah, 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 except because of the purge,
they don't
as far as
have
what
that
we're told,
problem.
It doesn't really happen. So it's really, you just need it for the one night, but they're very heavily important for that one night. Although they're still kind of a construct in their own way. As you learn in this movie, it's like, it's more, they're selling the idea of security. Like, yeah, they're pretty secure unless somebody really wants in, then they're not impenetrable. Nothing is, right?
They're really kind of like a facade. It's like to give the impression of safety. It's to give peace of mind, but they're really not tested to be an actual deterrent to people breaking in.
Yeah.
They're all they are is you see it, you think you can't break into it, so you move on. You're not going to try to break into that house. They're not meant to hold up to the test of time. And the timing of James explaining that to his wife.
At the what?
At the what? Yeah, it's not. Yeah. That was interesting.
To answer your question, Yes, they can get it.
Yeah.
But yeah, and because of this job that he has, the Sandins seem to be one of, if not the wealthiest family in the neighborhood. And even with their other rich neighbors with a nice house and a gated community, nothing like the Purge to really bring out some big, eat the rich energy for everyone, right? Definitely. So when opportunity strikes even for the neighbors, they become... It's crazy, this, hatred. I'm jumping way ahead to, even, a note about just the Purge stuff. But I was like, the neighbors arriving, these masked menaces have been wiped out, and they're like, well, they saved the Sandins for themselves. That is. What in the unholy HOA is going on here? Like I said, it's like they're taking neighborly jealousy to a whole new level. Like, if you can't keep up with the Joneses, then just, eliminate them. Yeah. That's pretty much what's going on.
But that ties into this whole... Grace said she wasn't going to have a party, and Grace is neighbors of the Sandins. She said she's not going to have a party this year. They're just going to have a quiet night. And yet we see that they are having a party, which led me to believe, and I know we're way ahead in the story, but I think it's important, and we're there, and we're going to talk about it. I think the intention was to do this in the first place. I think they were getting together, and I think they were going to go after the Sandins. I think they had other ideas on how they were going to go about it, but I think this presented something too good for them to pass up.
Right. But yeah, so they lock down and things seem safe. But doesn't take long for James to have a lot on his plate immediately have to deal with. I mean, his son just let some bloody stranger into the house who could be anywhere inside. We don't know what's going on. And then her daughter's psycho boyfriend decides to just start shooting at him. And it's went from 0 to 100 real quickly. He's just like, all right, nice family evening. What the fuck? That's what happened.
Yeah, that was really unsettling. Because we have this 18-year-old boy who is seeing his daughter, and that he doesn't want that to happen. He's forbidden it from happening, and yet she's still sneaking him into her room. And he tells her all the sweet things that, I just want to tell your daddy so he'll let me see you. And, he's just telling her all the sweet things. And when you're a teenage girl... you believe a lot of what you're being told. It's just how it is, especially because a lot of girls as teenagers are romantic. They're this romanticism and they're building things in their head. And so she's all in on Henry.
I mean, I could see you being blinded by this teenage love kind of thing, or you surrender your logic sometimes. So it's the white flag with surrendering, but then that guy's got so much red, his whole clothing, he's made of red flags. So, all his red flags washed with her white flags. So the whole laundry's pink. And cause I mean, he's just a creepy ass dude.
He is. He really, really is.
He sneaks into their house during dinner. That's a romantic gesture. You already knew there's something off when he's let's growl at each other, and that's our thing. He just decided for them that that's their thing. For her, it's he's either a sociopath or the lamest douchebag on the planet. Yeah. Probably both.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, she loves him, and he turns those words into a sound, a growl, and that's how they're supposed to indicate that they love each other. And she goes along with it because she's young. I mean, I don't think they said her age, but I can't imagine she's more than 15. And yeah. And he even says to her, I'll tell him how much I love you. So, of course, she's into it. She's just... Oh, yeah. It's this fantasy romance in her head.
Well, it's the creepiest of creeper vibes. When this, but you're mature for your age. The second that comes out, you're that's where you, turn that truck the fuck around. And you go home. Don't... Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. We got on this weird, like, Henry tangent because we're talking about James, but that's fine because I've got notes about him. Might as well get it out of the way. Yeah, because that's the whole point is, he's 18. She's still younger, teenager. So obviously James doesn't approve of him still dating his daughter. So tells him they need to break it off. So Henry's answer is to, like I said, break into their home on Purge night. And then what he says is convince her father that he's a worthy and good guy, or instead just kill him. Because that'll really make Zoe love you.
Oh,
didn't even try to talk to him. Like, because everyone knows the step one to earning somebody's love and affection is to murder their parents.
Yeah, definitely. No, said no one ever. Oh my goodness. Yeah. It's rough.
Yeah. It's like that storyline didn't go too far, because right after that kind of interaction, it's like, okay, R.I.P. dipshit. Zoe, you're much better off. It's fine.
Yes, you are. Yeah, you were, yeah. You can aim much higher than what you were with him.
She's got good aim, too, we see. No,
She does. She definitely does. But if we go back to James, he's realizing all this shit is going down because, yes, Charlie let in someone credited as the bloody stranger. But I'm just going to tell you right now, and I'm not going to apologize for it. He appears in additional films. His name is Dante Bishop, and that is what I call him throughout this entire movie.
Nice.
So,
good to know. Because, I had a question about that later. Not necessarily him, but then even... Because I don't mind the spoilage unless you don't want to spoil other people, but I don't know if it's even a spoiler. If it is, whatever. Because I haven't seen any of the other ones, like I said. So he does come back, but then any of the remaining stand-ins, are they ever seen again in any capacity?
No.
Or is this is it for...
They haven't been seen, and the timeline is getting so far, like, ahead in years that it doesn't make sense for them to come back. Plus, I mean, we're looking at Ethan Hawke has had a second or third resurgence of his career in the last year.
Moon Knight was incredible, and then...
The Black Phone.
I mean, Black Phone was such a big deal. Which, random tangent again, apparently they're making a sequel.
They are.
And Ethan Hawke and Mason Thames, I believe, and even Madeline McGraw, I think, are all supposed to, are slated to come back. Yeah. And I don't know how that's going to work, but...
Me either.
Sure, we'll see what happens.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure about it, but I'll give him a chance. I definitely will.
Yeah. But yeah, with all this going on, of course, we have the syndicate, the group that appears, this group of people.
Do you call them the syndicate? Because guess what? On Wikipedia, they refer to them as the Freaks. And
yeah, that works.
They're also, IMDb lists people as Freak number 1 and Freak number 2. Either one, yes.
Yeah, which, again, they're their own section, which ends up being most of my notes is them, because I talk more about, the things that go on with them and things that happen on that note.
So I think that we should keep most of that for that section.
Right, but we get the gist, is they were hunting down Dante, I guess, as you called him, here, this stranger, and... Charlie lets him in, and they decide to kind of make this ultimatum of that's our toy, give him back, or we come in and kill all of you instead. And that kind of becomes a real, big fulcrum of the plot of this movie. And it's where, it gets to the point where James is kind of making these decisions where he's, torturing a guy and about to give him back to these people. And his family kind of one by one. I mean, Charlie, talk more about Charlie, but he is an empath to a T. Mm-hmm. He is such a sensitive, emotional, empathic, feeling person that, we see that from the first time we see the kid almost, where, we can tell he has this heart and connection to people. Mm-hmm. He's a romantic, not necessarily, in, a romance, love sense, but in a poetic sense. Mm-hmm. He's a romantic where he sees everything through this kind of lens of positivity and love and people helping people and looking out for each other. And there's a positivity on the underlying of the world. That's kind of... It's
living in the world that he's in. Mm-hmm. It's not something that's common.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, most people are into the Purge.
Yeah, and I think we kind of learned that he gets that from his mother.
Yes.
He gets that from Mary, because even we see there's that scene where Charlie is asking his parents, it's like, well, y'all don't participate. And James is like, well, we don't feel the need to. And he's like, but if you felt the need to, you would. And he's like, yeah, if we needed to, we'd do it. And you see the look that Mary gives him, like, speak for yourself. I didn't say like,
right.
I don't know if I agree with that. That's not the thought process I'm on. So I see Mary and Charlie as being a lot similar. Like, I think that he gets a lot of those kind of personality traits from her. But James here trying to be the protector, saying, like, it's him or him and all of us. So, like, logically, give them what they want, give him back, which it's rough. Like, I get wanting to protect you and your family. But he sees he's, like, handing an innocent man over to a group of murderous psychopaths to condemn him to die for being poor. That's it. That's the only reasoning. No other reason. So,
and the guy is wearing dog tags. Like, so
he's a veteran.
He's a veteran. And you have to feel, for Charlie, because his heart's in the right place, and he doesn't want any part of giving Dante back. He's like, no. He questions his parents, and the answers he got from his father, I don't think he liked very much. Like, oh yeah, we would do it if we needed to. Well, we learn, yes, you will do what you have to when you need to in this world.
Yeah. But we see it kind of start falling apart, because he even sees, kind of through the lens of his family, the monster he's considering becoming. He doesn't really fully go there. It's more this protection and this, like, instinct there, but he sees the route that goes to when Charlie walks out and has nothing to do with it. Mary says no. And then even Zoe wakes up from her being knocked unconscious and through a clear concussion. Oh my God, look at her eyes. The highly concussed Zoe is even telling him, no, that's a bad idea, don't do that. No, so, clearly not guy, but then even, this man at the end of it, which is funny because the whole family's like, no. And then he's like, that's fine, do it. You can let me outside, protect your family. But based on the family's reactions, James really is a good man, and he's not going to go along with it. He can't do it. And he's like, I have another plan. He's like, you just gave our son a gun. What are you going to do? And he's like, we're going to fight. I have a paint can, some rope, a couple bricks, a torch, a nail. Have you seen Home Alone? Because that's the plan. Now,
I think one of the things that really got him to change his mind is Zoe just, he's trying to tell Zoe, oh, everything's going to be okay, and she just basically says to him, it's not going to be okay. Look at what you're doing. Nothing is ever going to be okay again. And I think that hit him and realized that his kids are never going to be the same after this experience. And if he puts that man outside, that's further going to traumatize his children. Mm-hmm. And so he decides, okay, we're going to fight. But then they don't know where Zoe is. She's always gone. Like, she's always somewhere. Who knows where she is? She's always somewhere. Just
very sneaky, not even meaning to be. She just disappears into the background. Nobody knows where Zoe is. But yeah, so the people break in, and it is, fight for your home, fight for your family, stand your ground. And that's what he does. This is what they all do. He does well. He saves Charlie. And then I guess his kind of really big moment is just like the game room brawl, I call it. That poor innocent pool table did not deserve all that.
No. R.I.P. pool table.
But after that whole fight, I was like, all right, Sandin's, well, actually just James 5, Intruders 0. Until...
For a minute. For 30 seconds.
Until he takes a knife to the gut and then bleeds out and dies. End of James.
So rough for the Sandins. He was doing the right thing. I think he was doing the right thing.
Oh, absolutely.
Because a lot of shit, which we'll talk about when it comes to the freaks, These people were not good people, not even in the daytime.
Mm-mm. Yeah, so there's most of my notes. But yeah, so James I'm done with. So I kind of set up who he is, the main arc he goes through, and kind of the character realization he has, and then his death right immediately after.
I know. I mean, they all get together basically to watch him die.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a point where that almost wasn't possible.
Yeah. And then Mary would be next on my list. If you have more James, you can too. But like literally, I covered all my notes I had on her, except for one thing, which is he said press on his wound, not stab him repeatedly. Goddamn Mary. Again,
though, it was torture. He was trying to torture him. She didn't want to do it. That's when she was just like, no, this is... Yeah, no, we're not going to go down this.
Press on his wound. Oh, you mean stab it all the way into him a couple of times? No, that's not what I meant, but sure. Do your thing, girl.
Oh, man. Yeah. She seemed like a decent mom. She was making a no-carb meal for her, a carb-free meal for her family. Not
a single carb.
I'm just like...
In that whole meal?
Was it made of...
No grits, then, so no. Timmy's out.
No.
Yeah. Timmy has nothing to do with that meal.
Nope. Nothing.
No grits, doesn't want it. Because that's, yes, Charlie. Talk about Charlie. He's a very interesting kid. Has his melted baby spy car named Timmy, which has Timmy. The word grits burned into its chest for some reason. Don't know why, but that's what I gravitated towards.
He just found one of Zoe's old dolls and just destroyed it. Nailed it there. He's a wizard with technology, though. I mean, he built Timmy, and Timmy does a lot of cool things. Timmy allowed him to get Dante to safety once. Mm-hmm. He used Timmy a few times to kind of see what was going on in the house.
Yeah.
I probably would have just run to his secret room and stayed in there.
Right. Yeah, I mean, we can move on to that. Like I said, if you have more on...
No, I'm ready to
parental
move on.
Figures of that, then yeah, just to the kids, which, yeah, you mentioned, Charlie's like little closet, crawl space, hidden room, his base of operations, I like to call it.
Yeah. I liked it.
It first
was cool,
controlling
right?
Timmy. Yeah.
Didn't we all? I mean, I don't know about you. I always wanted a secret room. Mm-hmm. Like a place where I could just go. So I built a tree house for myself. Like, that's what I did. So that I'd have my own space. How secret was it really, though? Because, I mean, Zoe knew about it. Yeah. And I assume his parents probably knew about it, too? Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know how secret it was. It has a little spot. Again, like I said, I really liked Charlie's character. He talks about at school, he wrote a story about a guy whose love was so powerful that it kills people. So he cuts out his own heart. And I was like, again, it was like a more romantic Poe. Is kind of, he's got this very romantic, poetic personality.
Yeah, he does.
Like, that sounds like, it's like if he would have wrote that as a book, that sounds like something Mike Flanagan would have turned into a series later down the road.
Absolutely. I thought the same thing. I'm like, this would be a great twisted little story. Mm-hmm. And Strange Indeed could cover it.
Yeah. And then, talked about Henry and all that stuff. The empathetic personality of Charlie, where he can't stand seeing the stranger outside begging for help, so he makes the risk of lifting the security systems and opens the door.
Well, and the neighbors tell the freaks where Dante is, that he's in the Sandins' home.
Charlie uses Timmy to lead the stranger into his hole. God, no, that didn't sound right. Strike that. Charlie finds the stranger using Timmy and uses the car to lead him to safety using the hiding space in his closet. That's worded better.
That was better, Pake. Good job.
That's worded much better.
Because Charlie has a good heart, and he didn't think that Dante Bishop deserved to die. And I'm glad he didn't, because there are things he does that need to happen. Mm-hmm. End of
Charlie
story.
Picked his spot, gets the stranger, Dante's using into there. And then every single person went directly into that room. So maybe not the best spot, actually. You know, Zoe is even like, there's that moment. She's like, I'm going to hide in your secret room. And he's like, fuck. Things have not gone the way they were supposed to.
No.
Now the stranger has a gun and a hostage. Awesome.
Yep. And that's where things go crazy for Dante.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then, again, I'll run through these so quick because I've talked about like other stuff with Zoe. So then lastly, I mean, James is mortally wounded. He's dying on the stairs. The family's gathered, and then they get cornered by QAnon Homelander. And he did say he wanted to save Zoe for himself.
Oh, Jesus.
And he got her. Every bit of fire and fury that she had with that pistol, right?
Yes.
That
That was so, I mean, it was so creepy the way that he's talking about Zoe. Like, he finds her picture and he's just kind of looking at it and tells this guy named Cooper, I think his name was, to save, like, little Miss Sandin for him.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's like, of course the leader's fawning over a picture of a teenage daughter, because why wouldn't he also be a creep, you know?
Well, of course he is.
He's the Matt Gaetz superfan that stabs James.
Oh, man.
Anyway, so that's not great. Then more of that fan club gets a hold of Mary, but then the Haversons pop over to pop off and save her for the time being. But then, jumping the gun. No pun intended there. But yeah. But yeah, so that's really like it with even like the kids, because that's the big thing that Zoe has is being able to take him out. So like, before I really get into just like the villains, which I'm focusing the most on, like this Dante character, the stranger, I think I have just like 2 little notes on him, and then I'm like done with all the like good characters in the movie, because it's a quick one. So unless you have more on the Sandin family in general.
My only other note was basically she's like a little defiant teenager, like any other defiant teenager that there is. I mean, they go through this phase, which is why all parents savor the moments that you have with your kids before they turn 13, because after that, that's when things start going downhill.
We're literally, how was your day at school, honey? I don't want to talk about my days ever again. It's stupid. Like, okay, sure.
Do you remember ever being that way? Do you remember ever telling your dad, it's stupid, I don't want to tell you anything?
I don't know. We never were really the family to sit around at the dinner table and talk about our days anyway. So, like,
okay.
We were more the family of like, here's dinner, there's a TV tray, go watch Survivor. Like, that was more like, that was kind of our dinner time. You know?
Oh man.
So.
Oh man.
Lost is on. Shut up. That was more family dinner time. So
It sounds like it was all a go at your house.
Yeah. So the stranger character, unnamed in this movie, there's that, talk about like him having the gun on Zoe, but I don't think he ever would have hurt her.
No, he wasn't going to hurt her. He was just trying to...
It's just what he can do at the moment.
Yeah.
He does sling her head first into the wall, knocking her unconscious and clearly giving her a concussion. But that was an accident. And then he gets knocked out with a vase, which I really thought that vase was going to shatter. That is a sturdy piece of pottery right there.
Is it? I'm sure it's probably made of some type of hard plastic.
Right. It's like that thing was either really expensive or really cheap. I don't know which.
Did you get it? Did you get it at IKEA or did you have it imported from France?
Right. But then, you kind of turn to forget about him until the very end of the movie, where things look really dire for the Sandins that are left, with the HOA from hell standing around them. And then, the stranger, he's still here, swooping in at the last second, saves Mary and the kids, shoots the shit out of that one guy, so no more walks for his dog. And...
oh, yes.
Then Mary, he gives the opposite. He said, your call, your choice. And Mary says, we're going to keep the rest of the night peaceful. Which they do.
Yes.
Aside from one busted ass face, but Grace was asking for that.
She was asking for that so much. So much. She was a ringleader. I think she was the ringleader of the whole frickin' thing. And I still stand by my statement. I think they were planning this, and it's a good thing they had Dante because he saved the day.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's all my notes on good characters, and then I've got like a whole little spiel on just this group, the villainous group, and then the neighbors, and the Purge in general, and things like that.
Well, I'm ready to talk about the freaks, because, oh my god. Talk about pompous, pretentious, just... You had to think that these were people who had so much money that they could do whatever the fuck they wanted.
Right.
And they were out killing people because it's their right. Yes, it's your right to do that.
Yeah, I referred to them as the entitled terrorists, or the trust fund terrorists.
Well, I mean, the leader looks maniacal because his face is in a smile even when he's saying terrible things.
Yeah, I will say I got to give it up to Reese Wakefield for being absolutely horrifically terrifying, with a smile and smirk on his face, with, you know, how he's speaking in a calm yet firm demeanor. He's a great villain. He really is. He's credited as the polite leader. Yeah. Although I don't know if slaughtering homeless veterans is ever really polite, but you know, to each their own. Yeah, but of course, the line that really sticks out the most to me for him is after one of the other guys gets really antsy, "Let us have the homeless pig," or whatever, and he just shoots the guy in the head, looks back at James in the eyes, and says, "He was my friend. You are not."
Yeah, so that lets you know, you get the cue that shit is real. You cannot take anything for granted. This guy means business. I mean, he said his friends were coming, and he was telling the truth. They came. And we get to see for ourselves that security system did exactly what James told his wife it was going to do. It's great out there, but it's not meant to be, you know, it's not going to hold up.
Yeah. Which, yeah, these villains seem very over the top, but it's on purpose because they are, especially this polite leader, it's very much a caricature in this social aspect of this story. And so I kind of have to go back and touch on, like, what is the Purge? What is this? Because the social aspect of this is spelled out pretty quickly, even with, like, they basically have a news anchor, like a person on TV being like, some people think it's this, and then basically gives the moral analogy that this movie is, word for word.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the situation of the Purge is honestly, it's an exploitation and eradication of the poor.
Yep.
Like, that's what they're doing. It's like, yeah, the economy looks better because the only people who can survive are the wealthy. So, yeah. Of course, that's why. Of course, I have to, like, poke one little hole in this fictional story meant to allegorically expand upon the faults in a capitalist system of free market that the United States has developed. Okay, so crime is legal. Any and all crime. So you can't be charged for anything you do in those 12 hours. However, what's to stop any legal repercussions afterwards, right? Like, you kill someone, your job knows you killed someone that you work with, or anyway, they're gonna fire you. Like, okay, you can't be arrested for engaging in some kind of immoral, atrocious act or whatever, but, like, the next morning, and after that, who's gonna want to hire you, associate with you, trust your moral judgment ever again? Like, that's the thought that I have in this. I'm like, yeah, you could do whatever you want for one night, but, like, there's still the rest of your life you have to contend with.
Well, because one guy during, like, you get the audio, people, like, the news broadcasts, and people are talking like, I'm going after my boss. He's got it coming. It's like, really, if you do that, people are going to know that you've done it. Do you really think you're going to, like you said, have a job?
Yeah, and then whoever the new boss is going to fire you. And stay far away from you and make sure you can't find them and hunt them down.
Right.
But then nobody else is ever going to hire you because they're like, well, he killed his last boss, so
right.
No.
So why would I? No. Pretty sure it's not a good idea either to go on TV and say that that's what you're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting that this group Did they remind you of anyone?
Well, let's see, Charlie lets the man in, so then the stand-ins get a visit from the people who stand to benefit the most from the Purge, who are the racist, classist, evil, rich white people with an insane superiority complex.
I mean, is it true? Yes. That's who they are.
Yeah. These were all young, rich white people.
Which is what the Purge, it seemed like the Purge was about. I mean,
Well,
really,
yeah.
we've talked about it.
Yeah, he talks about them having the ability to enter the home if they so desire, if they want, and want is all they... I don't remember the exact quote, but they give the stand-ins this choice. It's like, release the man so we can murder him because he's poor and black, or we will force our way into the home and massacre everyone in there. But we'd prefer not to kill other rich white people like ourselves, so, like...
Exactly.
Just do us a solid, yeah.
Well, that group, the homicidal, like the ladies, the women in that group, all seem very much like Charles Manson followers.
Yeah,
right?
it had a very Manson family vibe to it.
Yeah, and DeMonaco he's had a little obsession with that whole story with the Manson family, and so this is how he incorporated it into this movie.
Yeah.
Like, he had the opportunity to do that.
Yeah. This jabroni's got some kind of weird pig fetish, because pig and swine seem to be the only insults he knows.
Yep.
Yeah, so they get into the house. One of them gets Charlie, but James comes in and he's not fucking around.
Nope.
Talked about his creepy obsession with Zoe, and then
What really struck me is just the way that he felt that people like Dante exist just for him to purge them. Like, that's his...
Yeah.
Like, he's doing a civic duty by purging people like Dante.
Yeah.
And this is stuff, I mean, I didn't notice it the first time around, or the second time around. It's this time, watching it through a podcasting lens, I feel like I learned so much more about a movie when we do prep and then talk about it. It just sometimes changes what I think about a movie. Is this one going to move up my list on the Purge list of movies? No, because I already told you who my top two. Those are the top two. Mm-hmm. But I have a better appreciation, I guess, for it.
That's good. But yeah, so then the neighbors are like the secondary threat that arrive to kind of pick up the pieces. But again, yeah, good thing that Dante's there. And I guess it's a good thing that none of the family ate any of Grace's cookies that she handed Mary when she walked in, because they were probably burnt anyway. She looks like she can't bake.
I have to wonder if they had something in them.
That's what I figured.
If that was something, the cookies were to basically knock them out or incapacitate them.
Which makes sense if you said, like, there was another plan.
I think there was a plan in place.
Although I don't know how they would have planned on getting in the house. Unless the plan was for them to eat the cookies before lockdown and then never lock down the house.
Right.
Maybe that would have. Yeah.
Exactly. Like, there was a plan in place. They were going to do something.
Yeah. But, I wish they would have included a scene of, like, something with the cookies to where, like...
I know.
They shit-talk Grace for a second and throw them in the trash can or something. That would have been great.
Yeah, I know.
But then Mary decides to spare them all and just sit around the kitchen table and have them all soak and marinate in the choices that they have made and what they have done. And then when the sirens go back off, get the fuck out of my house, sends them out. All I know is the next HOA meeting is going to be awkward as fuck.
Yes. Yes, it is. It is going to be quite a meeting. It's one that you would want, I think, it should be broadcast on public access TV.
Right. Like, that's just like... So what do we think about the Christmas parade through the neighborhood? We're going with my idea, Grace, because remember when you tried to murder me and my children?
Yep. Exactly. Exactly. You want to... Oh my gosh.
Of course, they're probably getting the fuck out of that neighborhood anyway.
Oh my God, they must move away. Why would you stay there? Sell the house and move away. And I will tell you this. Someone asked James DeMonaco what he would do if there was a real purge, and he said, honestly, he'd just go to Canada and hide.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, that's, I think, what...
You just plan a trip a couple days before and
just go.
Make a long weekend out of it and just enjoy it. Yep.
Yep. Even if you go to the other side and just sit in your car. It's like, yeah, this is a little trip. Can you imagine the backup at the border?
Yeah. So I say you plan in advance. You go like a weekend in advance even, and then just
you'd have
something to do.
Oh my gosh. They'd probably start charging like, $50,000 a flight.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be insane. Yeah.
You should just move to a different country at that point.
I think you should. If your country is doing this, it's a good idea to get away from it.
Yeah, just don't be there. But yeah, so
but then
for the movie, over the credits though, there's some news broadcast stuff that
I wondered if you might catch that.
Yeah, apparently Dallas had the most participants, and I was like, yikes, that's fun.
Yeah, like 200 people out purging at the same time in the square. Can you imagine?
Like the town square. Man, that park's not that big.
No, no. It's horrible.
But yeah, and then I just had like one last little thought as the movie was ending, or like when the credits were rolling, because I thought about, because there's this interview with somebody on there where he says something about his two sons were killed in this year purge or something. And he said, I used to love my country. I thought, I was a patriot of the country, but not anymore. This country's taken everything from me. And it made me think, I was like, I have this feeling that what keeps the purge going year from year is a good percentage of participants in the purge each year are probably just survivors of the last year with their own vendetta. They're like revenge Santa Claus. They spend the year making a list, checking it twice, and then hunting down motherfuckers on the night they have the opportunity to.
Yeah. Well, and you have to think how attractive this would be to people from other countries who have a lot of rage. Like, what's to stop them from flying over? Participating. Having like a little weekend holiday in the U.S. Taking out their aggressions. I mean, at that point, it's beyond just a political experiment.
It's like the running of the bulls times 1,000.
Yeah. Oh, no. No. Nope. Not having it.
Tourists want to come and experience it. Yeah.
Yeah, no. I don't think so. Not good tourists. Evil, creepy ones.
Mm-hmm. But, yeah, that's all my notes. I had a feeling this would be a pretty quick one.
Yeah, I think
just because, there's social commentary, there's, like, some stuff to talk about, but, like, it's a shorter movie, and, like, even within the social commentary, like, it's pretty succinct. They're not drawing it out. It is what it is.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting how those blue baptisia flowers that we saw in the first purge that they were given were actually had a more symbolic purpose here, where if you are not participating, but you support the purge, you would put them in a vase outside your house.
Yeah.
So people knew that you supported the purge. I thought that was, that was interesting. And I suppose it would make people think, maybe they're not a target because they're showing that they support it.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought that was an interesting thing. And that came before they did the first purge, so they were kind of thinking backwards when they were putting the first purge together. I thought it was a clever tie-in between the two.
Mm-hmm.
I just have a couple of notes, just a couple of things, that are kind of like extra little notes about the movie itself. DeMonaco didn't really like the idea of the boyfriend coming to kill the father. He didn't think it really meshed well with the rest of the story.
It did seem kind of just out of left field. It was pretty random.
And originally it was going to be the daughter that was going to go after her father. And that didn't go over well with the studio, so they had to change it. DeMonaco was asked why the film began with the footage of the multiple purges, and he said he only had 19 days to shoot and $2.7 million to work with. He had decided that if he ever got a chance to do a second one, he would make it more like Escape from New York. Well, if you want to see if that's what happened, come back for our coverage of the Purge Anarchy.
Maybe this season?
Maybe this season? Maybe next season?
Because I don't know. I don't know if we want to, like, if we spread these out one a season, we'll be doing this a while, so...
Yeah, so maybe later this season.
We may come back into this one near the end of the season. We'll see.
Yeah. Because there's a couple more. There's 3 more, at least, to cover. And if you think this one is about social commentary, the Forever Purge definitely has a lot to say in that department. The reason that he decided to use the masks on the freaks is because it was kind of like, they look like Halloween masks. And people look at the Purge as like it's some sort of celebration or holiday. I mean, they even say, they have that whole thing that the neighbors were saying before they were going to kill everyone. You know, blessed be the new founding fathers for letting us purge and cleanse our souls. Blessed be America, a nation reborn.
Sounds very cult-like.
Doesn't it?
But I don't know, extreme patriotism and nationalism is very cult-like.
I think so, too.
It kind of checks out. Like, is this a new government or is it just a cult?
Yeah. The dates of this in 2022, it ties in date-wise with another part of another one of the films, and I'm not going to give it away. So, don't worry about that. So, I just have one more note about Dante Bishop, who, of course, played by Edwin Hodge, Bloody Stranger. We actually saw him in another movie we covered. He played Dorian in The Tomorrow War.
Okay, yeah.
Way back, yep. I think that was the start of season 3? I think it was the start of season 3.
Something like that. We just, last week, went back and recapped those seasons, and I've already forgotten. So.
I know, because we've covered so many, and then I think, oh my gosh, getting close to the end, there's not going to be anything to cover. And then I'm like, but we haven't even touched on that series yet. There's so many things to talk about. We definitely have plenty of material. And we got some suggestions in the off time. So that really helps as well. So earlier I was talking about this film has such a small budget. And you have 2 stars like Ethan Hawke and Lena Headey in this movie. Well, evidently Ethan Hawke is an old friend of Jason Blum and James DeMonaco, and he wanted to be part of this movie to lend it some star power. And in the Blum productions, cast and crew work for scale and receive a percentage of the profits, if there are any. So Hawke reportedly only received $3,000 up front. But because it was such a big deal.
But it went
grossed
huge on the box office, so he did good in the end.
He did good in the end.
Yeah. No, yeah, clearly, yeah. And I guess that relationship and that friendship has continued on, because Black Phone, we talked about that earlier, that's a Blumhouse production. So, yeah.
I know that people say things like, there's like a love-hate relationship with Blumhouse. Like,
I'm one of those people.
Yeah. You like it or you don't.
I see the Blumhouse title card on something, and I'm like, this is either going to be very unique and different and good, or it's going to be crap. Mm-hmm. Like, I just kind of go in on that, and it's a roulette. It's a toss of a coin. We'll see what happens.
Well, we've been lucky. We've covered a few movies that have been pretty good, so.
Yeah. I will say their track record has been much more on the good side versus the bad lately. Yeah. Even if it's really kitschy and cheesy, they do it in a good way, so. Yeah.
Well, Pake, I think we did it.
Yeah, we made it. We've purged all of the thoughts about this movie out into this recording. We got it. And now we can hear from
our
other
friends
people, from
and
their
the
friends and
listeners. Let us know.
Maybe they'll purge out their thoughts. Let's see. All right, we have a couple pieces of feedback here for The Purge this week, which excited to hear a little bit. Let's see, we got some lengthy feedback from a couple of people. Daphne, I guess you can take this first novel. What
Garrett.
Mm-hmm.
Garrett says, finally, he has been sending this in every week. Like, not every week, but to be fair, Garrett has submitted this movie along with a list of other movies. Like, every month he sends us more movies we should consider. And this one is really, like, one he's brought up before.
Yeah.
So, Garrett, I hope you enjoy this week's episode.
Yeah. Hope you enjoyed that. Well, we do see your messages. We see the list. We've added them to our stuff. We talk about them. There's a ton of movies to get to, so we get around to stuff. But yeah, always send in your stuff. We'd really appreciate that. So thanks. And glad that we finally got to one that you've been wanting. Yeah, of course the joke, that's all he said was literally just finally. But then I do get to read a note from Catherine, who sends us lots of thoughts, which, again, I sound like I'm like, oh God, wow, what a novel. But no, again, I love all the thoughts. Thank you. Don't make that sound like I don't want you to send in a long post and thoughts, because I love that, because I love when people really get into the stuff. So, and Catherine's really good about that too. So Catherine says, I hadn't watched The Purge's prequel before recently watching it for the podcast, and I don't think I've seen the original Purge since it was released 10 years ago. Knowing how it all came about made this rewatch so much darker. I remember thinking James' reasoning for The Purge made sense, kinda, if it made society better as a whole, but now seeing how easily people fall for fake news. I question James's character more now, wondering if he really was that brainwashed or if he just didn't care as long as he made a profit. I completely forgot Cersei was the mom. Yeah. So I did find it hard to see her as a victim, as some of her early facial expressions reminded me of scenes from Game of Thrones where she was about to betray someone. But by the end, I was completely on her side. Lena Headey is such an amazing actress when it comes to protecting her children. Her screams were chilling. The mental horror of The Purge is terrifying enough, but I loved all of the excellent jump scares and twists. I'm really looking forward to the sequels and wonder if they show what happened to the family after this Purge. I hope they at least move.
That would be great. I can tell you that James DeMonaco, he wants to keep making these movies for as long as he can. And the next two in this series are my two favorites. So I'm excited to cover those. It's going to be great. We may not get to them till next season, but I'm really excited to get to introduce Pake to them because he hasn't seen them.
Nope, this was the only one that I had ever seen before, so any more Purge stuff we get into will be first time watch for me. And I never watched the short-lived TV series either, which when we get to that point in the chronology of stuff, maybe I should just binge through it just for my own pleasure. We'll see.
I think it's definitely a series that if you can binge it, it will go better. I really looked forward to it week to week, but I wish that I could have just binged through the whole thing. Because I'm a binger. I like to be able to watch everything all at once. But I really enjoyed it. I was bummed when they canceled it, but I mean, what are you going to do? Well, if you would like to submit your feedback, like Garrett or Catherine, you can send it to us on Facebook and Instagram at Run For Your Lives Podcast. You can email us, runforyourlivespodcast@gmail.com. And if you're enjoying the show, please tell your friends. We are available on all the podcast players, really. Apple, Spotify, YouTube. You can go to runforyourlivespodcast.com for all the links that you will ever need. And please give us a review on Apple Podcasts, as that is the best way to share the love and get us out there even more. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely, we do. Really do appreciate it. Every bit of feedback we get. And, of course, speaking of sharing the love, got to give those shout-outs to things going on in the podcast universe around us, that being the world of Podcastica, mainly, our network. We'll give a little extra shout-out to that it's been really cool. This was our first year. 2023 was. You're listening to this now, it's 2024. But yeah, 23 was our first year in Podcastica officially, and it's been quite an awesome ride. Really loved being part of that It's been a lot of fun. Hope to continue on for as long as we can. And so for more. So yeah, just give that a little shout out because podcast keeps growing. So many great things going on. So of course, make sure to check out lots of great stuff on The Cast of Us. They are still going through their Walking Dead rewatch. They're in season 2, episode 3 this week. Lucy, Jason, and Karen Shee talking about that one. So that was, great stuff to check out for sure. All of the What If episodes have been out, are up now with Kurt and Lenny doing those. They've been doing a great job covering that all season. It was an interesting way of them doing just a new episode every day, which I kept up with all 8 days in a row, and it was really fun. It was like 8 days of Christmas, but with Marvel goodies. I enjoyed that. Kristen and Ben over on Revisited, still going through Ted Lasso. Now they are on the season 2, episode 2, titled Lavender, is where they're at now. So they're into season 2 of Ted Lasso, trucking along. Lots of good stuff there. Squid Game cast, getting closer to the end of Squid Game. This week, episode 7, titled VIPs, which, don't want to spoil anything for those who don't know Squid Game too much, but, it's quite a bridge to cross in that episode.
Yeah, I would say that. I guested on that episode with Jason and David to talk about that one. Yeah, there's a lot to work through.
Mm-hmm. So definitely check that out if you're a fan of that. Still keep getting ready for season 2, whenever that is. Is there any official
No official date yet.
Let's see. On Still Slaying, the Buffy fan cast, rewatch cast there. Definitely check that out as well. Cara and Penny covering season 3, episode 1, Dead Man's Party. So you can check that out. And then we haven't talked about what is From a little bit. The From cast, the From podcast, the MGM Plus show From, which is such a good show. Every time we talk about it, it's like, go check it out. Season 3 is filming now, so it's still a little while till we'll get it. But since we've got a little bit of time with them in a filming schedule, Alex and Liz love that show so much. So they are rewatching it, recovering it, re-going back through the episodes. So they will be starting that this week. So if you're a fan of From and need, if you've listened to their coverage and just need more goodies, then go back and go along with their rewatch for sure. And then if you haven't watched the show, again, I plug it, go watch From. It's like the best show that nobody's watching, and I need more people need to check it out. And then you can listen to 2 episodes.
Yeah, I really enjoy what Alex and Lizzie do with their regular season stuff and their interviews. And a rewatch podcast is a lot of fun because you can take everything that you've learned from the 2 seasons that it's been on and apply it through the episodes at the beginning of the series.
Yeah.
And build those connections. And it really helps get you ready for the next season.
Yeah. So that'll be great. Definitely check that out. And lastly, gonna give some love to House Podcastica, joining with Wilhelm with Ben. So it's Mark and Ben over there. Still covering Monarch, Legacy of Monsters. That is wrapping up soon. It's got 2 episodes left. So they covered episode 8 this week. And yeah, make sure to check that out because it's going to be loads of fun as we wrap up that season. And I say we because me and Daphne are going to officially be joining them, guesting on the finale on episode 10. In like 2 weeks, that release, we record with them next week, and I'm super stoked. It's been quite a fun show, so I'm excited to hang out with Mark and Ben on that one.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, but outside of that, of course, more What If coverage. Other good comic booky podcasts you can check out. Panels to Pixels has been doing a great coverage of that, as well as TV Podcast Industries. So if you need all the good Marvel What If stuff, check out those podcasts as well. They put a lot of work into all kinds of comic book shows. Go give them some love as well. But other than that, you can always come back here next week. We'll find something fun for you. In fact, Daphne, what do we have lined up for the next week?
Okay, so next week, when a child moves in with her aunt after losing her parents, her aunt finds common ground with her by creating a robotic playmate that utilizes artificial intelligence. We are going to find out what happens when the boundaries between AI and human emotions blur. We are covering the 2022 film Megan, which was directed by Gerard Johnstone and stars Allison Williams and Violet McGraw.
Yeah. It'll be a fun one, for sure.
It is. It's quite a movie, so looking forward to getting that one released next week. With that, we've reached the end of our episode. Thanks, everyone, for listening. I'm Daphne.
And I'm Pake.
And if you have to run, you better run for your lives.
Bye-bye.